Hello, here I am again in the name of the sovereign creator of heaven and earth, the Lord Jesus Christ. Continuing with my series on the chronology of the life of Christ. This video, I'm going to just talk about the Legion. It's in three Gospels, so Matthew, Mark, and Luke, but I will read them in reverse order: Luke, Mark, and Matthew. So first, Luke chapter 8, verses 26 through 39. I'll take it paragraph by paragraph as usual. Then they sailed to the district of the Gadarenes, which is opposite Galilee. Well, when he stepped out on the land, a certain man of that town met him who had had demons for a long time. He wore no clothes, nor did he live in a house, but among the tombs. When he saw Jesus, he gave a yell, fell down before him, and with a loud voice he said, "What do you want with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I beg you, don't torment me." Because as Jesus had commanded the unclean spirit to get out of the man. Parenthesis, it had seized him many times. He would be bound with chains and shackles, being kept under guard. Then, bursting the bonds, he would be driven by the demon into deserted places. Close parenthesis. Then Jesus asked him, "What is your name?" And he said, "Legion," because many demons had gone into him. And he kept imploring him, Jesus, that he would not order them to go away into the abyss for the moment. In verse 26, the eclectic text, currently in vogue Greek text, following just 3 Greek manuscripts of objectively inferior quality against 1,700 better ones, reads Gerasenes, as in NIV and ASB, Living Bible, etc. The NIV has a footnote that says, quote, "Some manuscripts Gadarenes," end quote. Okay, using the word "some" to describe some 1,700 manuscripts against 3, that's a dishonest use of the national language. It's just plain dishonest. For a full discussion of this question, please see my article, Legion and the Pigs. Where was it? You can find it in various places. The disciples may not have known who Jesus was, but the demons didn't have any problem. They knew who he was. Now in verse 30, the Lord asks the demon's name. I assume that Jesus knew the demon's name without asking, so why did he ask? I would say that Jesus wanted it to be part of the record to teach us that demon infestation can and does occur. As I've written elsewhere, you don't have to know a demon's name to expel it. Now, he says Legion, there were 2,000 pigs. We don't know how many demons. There's an awful lot of demons. But it's the boss demon who does most of the talking, representing his cohort. In verse 31, that was 31, that's the boss demon, into the abyss. That's what the text says, the abyss. Presumably the same one mentioned in Revelation chapter 20, verse 3. The demons knew something that most of us do not. I'll now read verses 32 and 33. Now a herd of many pigs was feeding there on the hillside, and they, that's the demons, started begging him that he would allow them to go into those. So he gave them permission. Then the demons exited the man and entered the pigs. And the herd rushed down the steep bank into the lake and was drowned. Well, I very much doubt that the demons engineered that reaction of the pigs. It would have been counterproductive, leaving them without a house all over again. Animals often show more good sense than humans do. Have you noticed that? And the pigs may have preferred death to demons. Also, just by the way, I suppose that it's possible that Jesus himself commanded the action since pork was proscribed for God's people. One other thing, pigs can swim. So it is strange that all of them died. Very unusual. Going on, let's read verses 34 through 37. We're still in Luke. Well, when the herders saw what had happened, they ran away and reported it in the town and in the countryside. So they went out to see what had happened and came to Jesus. They found the man from whom the demons had gone out sitting at Jesus' feet, clothed and in his right mind. They were afraid. Also, the witnesses reported to them how the demonized man was healed. Then the whole multitude from the surrounding region of the Gadarenes asked him to depart from them because they were overcome by fear. So he got into the boat and returned. A couple things here. Verse 35 says they were afraid. Well, with good reason. Supernatural power was obviously at work, and they weren't used to that. They asked him to leave. The loss of those pigs was a severe economic blow. And of course, again, they were overcome with fear. And so Jesus got in the boat and went away. And apparently he never went back. They didn't want it. They'd had their chance. Now, just two more verses in Luke 38 and 39. Now the man from whom the demons had gone out had started begging him that he might be with him. But Jesus sent him away, saying, return to your house and recount how much God has done for you. So he went his way and proclaimed all over town how much Jesus had done for him. I just want to comment that last bit. But Jesus said how much God, but the man said how much Jesus, which amounts to the same thing, okay? Actually, the man witnessed to such good effect that many in that area believed, as we will see later. Now we go to Mark. Now I'm going to read chapter 5, verses 1 through 10 to begin. Then they came to the other side of the sea, to the region of the Gadarenes. And when he got out of the boat, right away a man with an unclean spirit met him coming from the tombs. He had his dwelling among the tombs. No one could bind him, not even with chains, because he had often been bound with shackles and chains, only to have had the chains torn apart by him and the shackles broken in pieces. No one had been strong enough to tame him. Always, night and day, in the tombs and in the mountains, he was crying out and cutting himself with stones. When he saw Jesus from a distance, he ran and kneeled down to him. And with a loud cry, he said, what do you want with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I implore you, by God, don't torment me. Because he, Jesus, was saying to him, you unclean spirit, come out of the man. Then he asked him, what is your name? And he answered, saying, Legion is my name, because we are many. He started begging him repeatedly that he would not send them out of that region. For the moment, let's go back and check a few things here. Again, as in Luke, a very small handful, 5 manuscripts out of 1,700 of objectively inferior quality, that's Greek manuscripts, have Gerasenes, which is simply a fiction instead of Gadarenes, as in NIV, NASB, LBT. Oh, okay, you know. The point is this: Gadara, being the Roman capital of the province of Ferrara, located some 6 miles from the Sea of Galilee. The region of the Gadarenes is a perfectly reasonable description of the site, especially since Mark was writing for a Roman audience. Romans might know about that. But for a more detailed discussion, you can see my article, Legion of Pigs, where was it? Now, in verse 5, it talks about the guy was cutting himself with stones. Here in Brazil, where Spiritism and Satanism are out in the open, this sort of thing is well known, no problem. The demons heal the victims so that they don't become incapacitated. It's part of their game. Now, this was a boss demon, head of a legion, but he ran and kneeled down to Jesus. That's unusual, you know, because this was an unusually powerful demon, yet he kneeled to Jesus, where all the small fry that we've said, they didn't do that, although they all know who Jesus was. Just by the way. Also, in verse 7, it's really something that this demon implores Jesus by God. Come on, what's a demon doing appealing to God, you know? But since the demon had recognized correctly that Jesus was the Son of the Most High God, he was appealing to him through his Father. It was pretty shrewd, you know, that was pretty shrewd. I assume also he'd been informed that the attempt to destroy Jesus with the storm had not worked, that it failed. Now, legion. A full Roman legion was 6,000 men, but many legions had only half that many. On the basis of verse 12, which I haven't read yet, we'll get there in a minute, one wonders if there would have been 2,000 demons. There were 2,000 pigs. 2,000 demons? This being the only recorded instance where Jesus asked the demon's name, I've already mentioned that. I take it so we would know that demon infestation occurs, and it does, by the way. Now in verse 10, in Luke, he asked not to be sent to the abyss, but here, not to be sent out of the region. He probably said a variety of things, actually. The point is that demons are territorial. You see that in Daniel chapter 10, very clear. The parallel passage, okay, I've already said that. In Luke says the abyss, okay. In verse 12, all the demons begged him. Perhaps 5% of the Greek manuscripts omit all the demons. To be followed by NIV, NASB, LBTV, so on, except some of them keep the demons, but not the all. Now let's go on and read verses 11 through 13. Oh, I got ahead of myself with that footnote. Anyway, now a large herd of pigs was feeding there on the hillside. So all the demons begged him, saying, "Send us into the pigs so that we may enter them." And forthwith Jesus gave them permission, and coming out, the unclean spirits went into the pigs. Parenthesis, there were about 2,000. But the herd rushed down the street bank into the sea, and they were drowned by the sea. Okay, I already commented that. Let's go on to 14 through 17. So those who were tending the pigs ran off and reported it in the town and in the countryside, and they went out to see what it was that had happened. They came to Jesus and observed the man who had been demonized, who had the legion, sitting and clothed and in his right mind. They were afraid. Those who had seen it related to them how it happened to the demonized man and about the pigs. And they began to implore him to depart from their borders. You've already commented that in Luke. I'll go on now to 18 through 21, which will be the end of the text from Mark. Well, upon his getting into the boat, the man who had been demonized started begging him that he might be with him. But Jesus did not permit him, but said to him, "Go home to your family and report to them how much the Lord has done for you, and he had mercy on you." So he departed and began to proclaim in Decapolis how much Jesus had done for him, and all were marveling. Now, when Jesus had crossed over again by boat to the other side, a large crowd gathered to him, and he was by the sea. I just want to comment about the Lord here, different from what I've already said. The text says Lord, not God, and Jesus was presumably speaking Hebrew. He probably used God's personal name, Jehovah, to give that translation here. And of course, as I've said in verse 20, the man credits Jesus. Now let's go on to Matthew chapter 8, verses 28 through 34. So I'll parallel, all repeating the same story. Upon his coming to the other side, the region of the Gergesenes, two demonized men met him coming out from the tombs, very dangerous, so that no one could pass that way. And then they cried out, saying, "What do we have to do, or what do you have to do with us, Jesus, Son of God? Have you come here to torment us before the time?" Now, a good way off from them, there was a herd of many pigs feeding. So the demons kept imploring him, saying, "Since you are going to cast us out, permit us to go into the herd of pigs." So he said to go. And coming out, they went off into the herd of pigs. And then the whole herd of pigs rushed down the steep bank into the sea and died in the water. So the swineherds ran away, and going into the town, they told everything, including about the demonized men. And then the whole town went out to meet with Jesus, and upon seeing him, they begged him to depart from their borders. Well, now, there's a couple things here. Matthew's much shorter than the others, but there's a couple things that only he has. Some 98% of the Greek manuscripts read Gergesenes rather than the Gadarenes. That's probably in your Bible. Gadara, as I've already said, was the Roman capital of the province of Ferrara, located some 6 miles from the Sea of Galilee. For the swineherds to run 6 miles to the city to report the incident and then walk back with the people would take quite a while. It seems more likely that there was a village named Gergesa nearby, whose people came and asked Jesus to leave. For more about that, again, I say see my article, The Legion of the Pigs, or was it? Now we come to something that only Matthew does. He says there were actually 2 men. Well, as a tax collector, as we've said in other cases, numerical precision was important to Matthew. Where other gospels may select an individual sufficient for the narrative, Matthew specifies that there were actually 2. The same goes with the blind men and the donkeys, although the blind men probably a separate occasion. Now, the demons knew who Jesus was and about their own destiny. I've already talked about Mark and Matthew and Luke. Luke, the bis, Matthew, the region. But actually, obviously, the demons really were worried, and they knew something that most of us do not. A whole lot more involved than we usually think about. Now, I'm going to repeat something that I've already said. That people asked Jesus not to come back or to leave, and he did, and he never went back. They didn't want him. He didn't insist. Just by the way, though, I doubt that the inhabitants were Jews. If they were raising pigs, which was prohibited by the Mosaic law, they were probably not Jews. In fact, the Decapolis was mainly Gentiles. Of course, the pigs were the huge economic loss. The pigs were more important than the two men, okay? Don't you know anyone to whom money is more important than people? Okay, that's it for tonight. Thanks for watching. God bless.